what you do is you roll a die if you have elephants present, and if the elephant charge succeeds, then you get an extra battle card for each elephant that's in the battle. So that's kind of cool.
So if I understand you correct, for each CU that I have on the board, that's how many battle cards I get?
No, in the battle. In the battle. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So if Hannibal rolls in with 8 CU, he's going to get a base of 8 battle cards, basically.
Okay.
So then if you look over on the charts that are on the top left, you have your attrition table and your retreat table and that sort of thing. So you go into a battle. We'll look at the battle cards here shortly and how that part goes. At the end of the battle, there's one die rolled, and that is the attrition that each side takes. And then there's the retreat table, and that's so you're losing combat units there. But if you notice on the attrition table, down toward the bottom, some of the worst results, say 1E, 2E, they have E's associated with them. That would mean you need to lose that many units, and the first one has to be an elephant. And you only start out with 2 elephants, and you have the possibility of getting 2 more during the game if you get the right card play. So elephants are a pretty rare commodity, and so that kind of hurts when you lose them.
Okay.
Attrition also happens if you get to the end of the winter phase, and you're on a enemy combat or an enemy PC marker instead of your own PC marker, or I think an empty one where you can't trace back to one of yours. You take attrition then, so you can lose. Depending on where you winter, you can lose guys that way. Not quite as harsh as they are in Washington's War, I don't think. Where you just automatically lose them all over the board. It's a lot easier to stay out of an attrition situation in Hannibal. You also have to roll them when you're going across the passes. If you look at the double lines between some of the spaces on the map, a lot of them up in that Gallius, however you pronounce that one, up there north of Italy, with the tribes. There are 2 different kinds. There's snow-covered ones and regular ones. If you're trying to go across the snow-covered, your attrition roll is even higher. So that's not good. Or it's even harder, I should say, to make the roll when you're trying to go across the snow-covered passes.
So if it just partially touches the snow, is that considered snow? Like from Abu Dibida to Toulouse?
That is, I'm not sure with the orange and the red on this particular map. I'm not sure which one they're trying to say is snow and which one's not. That one might be not snow. It might be the red ones are snow. I'm not really
well,
sure.
Actually, it looks like orange. Looking at all the reds and the oranges ones cross snowy areas.
Okay, gotcha. So any one of those. If you look up at the attrition modifiers, there's Alps passes. Alps passes are just the regular passes, or the snowy passes rather, and non-Alps are the non-snowy passes. So if you roll on the attrition table in a non-Alps, so it's not snowy, you get to subtract 2 from your roll, and a lower roll is better.
Okay.
And then there's the native guide, which is a card you can play. Pestilence is a card. All those other ones are just modified if a card gets played. So you can see up there in the north of Rome, it's pretty difficult for Carthage to get up there and get around and get into Rome. But the other problem is, if you look at all the different ports, you have the +2 and the 0, all the different numbers there next to the ship markers in the ports. That's a roll that Carthage has to make. Rome has control of the seas at this period. So if Carthage wants to make a naval move, you need to play a 3 card for one thing to activate your general, no matter which general it is. You can't naval move unless you've activated them with a 3 card. and then when you actually make your move, you need to roll a die, and that is not up there in the top left. Let me scroll around again.
There's a lot of information built into the board.
Yeah, they put a little extra here on the vassal one. Actually, I don't think all of this is on the regular map, or at least it's not quite as visible as it is on here. It's, you know, it's on player aid cards and stuff like that. So now as I scroll down, I realize that, yeah, they actually have the terrain key down there, and
Yep.
they show Alps Pass and non-Alps Pass down there. So you were correct about that. So then in the bottom right, you have the naval combat table and the naval combat modifiers. It's a little bit of a misnomer in my opinion. I mean, I guess it does represent that there is naval combat going on, but there is no actual naval combat. You say, I'm going to make a naval move, and you roll on that table. So it's not an interactive, you know, opposed die roll, or nobody's playing cards or anything. So we'll take a move from, say, this is Hannibal is in New Carthage, which is over there in Spain. He's down there with his 2 CU. You see him?
Yep.
So his port is a -2. It's a Carthaginian controlled port, so it's easier to sail from. And if he wants to sail over to Syracuse, we'll say, which is all the way over there, and that's a 0. So you activate Hannibal with a 3 card. You say, okay, I'm going to move from New Carthage over to Syracuse. That's a -2 on the die. You roll a 6-sided die, and you can consult the naval combat chart. You see if you roll a 3, you sink. And next to the naval combat modifiers, you have pluses and minuses for the port modifiers. It's actually +1 if port contains a Roman PC. So actually going into Syracuse, you'd only have a -1. -2 for New Carthage and +1 for Syracuse having a Roman PC in it. If you're moving a really small army, 0 or 1 combat unit, it's easier to go. And then there are some event cards: Macedonia and Syracuse allies, naval victory. And then Mago, I guess, was a good admiral. So if you're moving the Carthaginian general Mago, you get an extra -1. So because there is a chance of sinking, and sinking to just lose that whole army that moves, it's pretty rare for someone to just chance it on the naval combat table. Mago tends to be moving around a lot. You try to move into places that have at least a -1, like Lily Bayham up there near Syracuse. And you just try to get it so that basically you have no chance of sinking, and hope you either make it or return. Because you only make it on a 1, so you really have to add up your minuses as much as possible. The Macedonian ally just represents you ally with Philip of Macedonia, and he helps you out on the sea, I guess. Distracts some Roman navies over in his direction while you skate around on the Mediterranean a little more. But now Rome can just sail anywhere they want at any point. So it puts a little bit of a fear into Carthage. You kind of want to move around, and you've got maybe an army going up across the Alps, and maybe you do manage to sail one down into somewhere else. But meanwhile, the Romans can just bounce right back into Spain anytime they want and kind of cause havoc. So it's a little scary being real aggressive as the Carthaginians, because you want to keep some people back there. But the more pressure you keep on the Romans, the less chance they have to actually sail out and mess with you too. So it's kind of a toss-up.
So for the Carthaginians to take ports, it's almost like a waste of time in a way, or it's difficult for them to defend that type of area. But if they come in through the land areas and do movement, it's a little easier?
Yeah, it is generally. There are cards, the cards that either flip or remove PC markers. are things like there's one that just removes everything from Corsica and Sardinia of the opposite guy. I think there's a similar one for Sicily. I can't remember. There's definitely those for the two big provinces down in Africa. So if you can kind of set it up so you have the opportunity to take all those PC markers out, and then that takes away the +1 from Rome, and so you can move over there, and so you can try to set it up so that you can sail over. And then once you start placing your PC markers, the Romans have to kind of go around and stamp them out, because you can't flip them back or remove them without an event or without having a combat unit there. And if Carthage follows up that move by moving in some troops, you can't just go around and leave one combat unit everywhere, because then those guys just get mopped up. So yeah, I mean, you do have a chance as the Carthaginians to get in there on the ports, but at least as far as I've seen, it's pretty common to have a bunch of battles going on up in the Alps region where Hannibal's trying to fight his way into there. So one thing that goes on with battles, so I was saying at the end of the turn, you determine who's getting victory points by who has control of the different provinces. The way it works with control is, I don't remember if it's exactly a simple majority everywhere. There's a chart that says exactly what it is, but it's pretty close to a simple majority, if not. So like if you look at Corsica, Sardinia in the middle, whoever has at least 3 PC markers in there is considered to control that province. So if you were to fight there, you would get your ally from there, and if you're at the end of the turn, you would get your victory point from there. Where that becomes somewhat of a chess match is when there's a battle. In addition to losing the battle and having to retreat, so you lose more guys than the other guy did, the loser also has to pick up PC markers equal to half, rounded down, of the number of combat units he lost. So you lose 4 or 5 combat units during the battle, and I don't want to say 100%, but I'm almost positive that that takes into account all of the PC markers you lost during that battle. So losing them from the attrition roll and the retreat losses, which can be pretty high, and we'll go into how you retreat shortly. So if you lose 5, then you have to go around and pick a couple of PC markers, which is bad, basically, because it costs, every one of them that you put out costs you an ops point, and as soon as you pick yours up, then they're open, and the other guy can just place his there on his next move. So having them there and the other guy having to flip them is a lot better than having them be open and the other guy can just place them. So generally, you look around at some areas like the big sort of wide area in between Spain and Italy. You don't do a lot of fighting there, so you don't really have to worry. You don't really have to worry about allies up there and things. But people still try to fill those up with their PC markers when possible, just so you can have a little bit of a buffer for when you have to pick PC markers up because you lost battles. So what was I going to say? Oh, so retreats. You can retreat up to 4 spaces, and you have to end up on one of your political control markers. That's where having the tribes over in Italy really makes a big difference. Because if you couldn't retreat down to Bruttium or up to one of the tribes up there in the north of Italy, you'd almost never be able to sail over there and fight, because you'd have nowhere to retreat back to. So those are there probably both for historical reasons and to make it so that the Carthaginians actually tried to attack over there. Tribes work very much like cities as far as you can't simply just flip them. You actually have to siege them. It's considered sieging if you're trying to take over a city, and it's considered subjugating if you're trying to take over a tribe. The difference is, so if you're trying to siege a city, you see all the cities have a number on them. A lot of 2s, it looks like. I think Rome is a 3. You have to get that you have to get that many siege points over the course of a couple of different turns, so a couple of different siege rolls, in order to successfully siege that city. Once you do, you flip it over and that city becomes yours. As far as the tribes, once you've successfully subjugated a tribe, you actually just remove the marker, it becomes neutral. And then you can place a regular PC marker, and then you can just flip PC markers back and forth at that point as if there was no tribe there. Basically, they've been dispersed, I guess, into the general populace. So it's not that you can get a tribe to ally with you by subjugating them, and then the other guy has to subjugate and get it back. It just becomes that tribe just goes away and it becomes a regular space after that. So, you know, sieging and subjugating is actually somewhat tedious, and I don't actually ever really see a lot of sieges of cities, because it's actually in general a little bit more trouble than it's worth. Rome does do more so than Carthage, because Carthage gets a natural